I've been having a bit of an internal debate with myself the last few days. I have been coming to terms with the loss of my good friend back in Canada to a 2-year battle with breast cancer. I found out on Sunday night that she had passed, and I have been struggling to come to terms with the terrible news of the loss of my good friend and why someone so talented, so loving, so caring, and so loved by her friends, her family, and her community, why this would happen. Um, this episode this week is completely unscripted in the spirit of authenticity and my desire really to explore the aspects of our learning in adulthood and everything that comes with that. Um, Sometimes I think about in our professional lives, and for us as adult learning professionals, we have learners who come to us, who attend our training sessions, who are in our workplaces, or those who we're training, or individuals who are coming to us for different types of learning. And they too have things that they're battling or experiences that they're currently working through, kind of complex lives that are happening without us even realizing it. And this week, I thought I would share with you just some reflections about grief and what I've been learning in this short period since my friend passed away. I'm also using this podcast as a kind of strategy for myself to look at my own experience of coping and any sort of reflections I have about the experience of learning in adulthood. And so I thought I would use this episode today to talk about my experience of grief and what I'm learning so far. And I'd like to dedicate this episode to my friend Jerry and the amazing impact that she had, not only on my life, but on everyone's lives around her, her family, her friends, her husband, Mark, their 2 girls. And I dedicate this episode to her. Jerry was a talented optometrist. She was a caring mother, a wife, and a gorgeous friend. We met back in university in Canada, and we were paired together as roommates. And I somehow knew at the time she was going to play a significant role in my life. I'm doing this completely unscripted today, so I feel quite vulnerable, but I'm just going with it. Over the years and across many miles between us, as I was working in Asia and she was growing into the confident and caring eye doctor that she always wanted to become, her and I had these kind of discussions every few months, and we'd kind of reflect on how we're navigating our professional roles, but also, as people in this world that's changing and growing into, the women that we always wanted to become. And she was the kind of person who I could always share those milestones with. We also celebrated many highs and lows over the years in our engagements. I heard about the birth of her daughters, being in each other's weddings, and all these milestones in between. She was this person who always listened, and she held space for everyone in her presence. And she was one of these people who was deeply compassionate. And towards the end of her battle with cancer, she ended up becoming this incredible advocate for breast cancer research. And she was running amazing events in her community and really inspired those around her. In the Adult Learning Hub this month, we've been discussing the beginner's mind. And as I sit here, I've been thinking actually about how can I possibly apply this thinking of a beginner's mind to such a sad situation. And further, how can I reflect on our experience of learning in adulthood, given the sort of challenging and difficult times that we go through. So there's a few reflections that I have that I wanted to share with you today. Usually when I experience something new, immediately I'm curious about it. So if I have positive, negative experience or a challenge that I'm overcoming or a scenario that I need to work to, immediately I am curious about it. This is my first experience of having a close friend of mine, close friend of mine die from a disease in adulthood. I've had family members pass away, but when I was younger, I've had friends of friends who have passed away, but no one who has been this close to me that has passed away from such a disease. And so if I approach this from a beginner's mind, I'm thinking about observing myself in this process of grief. I'm listening to my body, knowing when to stop and rest and clear my head and go for a walk. So I'm learning that it's not so much about trying to draw any kind of conclusions during this time, but treating it with curiosity and care, and knowing that I'm not the only one who's grieving. There are many other people who also are having this experience right now. I think what I'm learning also is to be thankful. In this short time that I found out that she passed away, I have been reflecting and telling my husband about the wonderful and silly and amazing times that her and I've had together over the years when we were in university, taking road trips to the mountains in Alberta and having times in our apartment, funny times with our roommates together, and seeing her over the years. And I haven't thought about these memories in a long time. And it's been good to articulate them to my husband and talk about the good experiences I've had. And it's just reminding me about being thankful, having this kind of practice of gratitude that I've been doing since January, journaling what I'm thankful for. It gets me to think about this kind of positive power that we have to reframe how we see a situation. And so even just the act of articulating this in the form of a podcast right now, it's helping me work through some of this grief, and also explicitly reminding myself that she was a wonderful person and I'm so thankful that I got to know her. It's also teaching me about being present, not running away from grief, but embracing it and befriending it and talking to it. I think as educators or those who are tasked with the learning of adults, maybe you can resonate. It's so easy for us to want to apply some kind of framework to our learning, or we have an experience and we want to summarize it somehow or draw a conclusion. And often maybe we want to do it quite quickly. But sometimes I think in adulthood, we have experiences that don't often make sense, that are confusing, that are really tricky to navigate. And I'm learning in this situation that I don't need to make sense of things. It's not really what grief is about. I can't really wrap my head around why someone so vibrant and so full of life had to experience this kind of suffering. But what I do know is that she made an impact, and she was someone very important to her friends and her family. And she was a beautiful person. So I'm choosing to focus instead on the positive aspects of what I remember about Jiralee, and knowing that I don't need to come to any kind of conclusion, but it's more important to think about the kind of person that she was and the attributes that I want to emulate in this life, and think about the kind of impact that I want to have in this world. It also is reminding me during this time about, what's important. What are the things that I want to prioritize? I'm learning that it's amazing how grief puts things into sharp focus. All of a sudden, my husband and I are having conversations that we haven't had before. We're thinking about our own health, our own quality of life, the experiences that we still want to have. And it's got me thinking just about, okay, what are the things that I want to be focusing on, putting my attention towards? Another reflection I've had is that, we never know what life has in store. We never know what's around the corner. And so if I'm to treat grief with a beginner's mind, as we've been talking about in the Adult Learning Hub this month, I wonder if I can start treating every day as a fresh start, using it as a chance to kind of refocus and not take things for granted. So I have no conclusions about grief in adulthood, but what I'm coming to understand is that we all lead sometimes complex and confusing lives. We're all navigating different aspects of our experience. And yes, there is suffering. And yes, there are difficult times that we go through. And yet, there's learning that we can experience if we take the time to sit with ourselves and not run away from difficult times, but embrace them, embrace challenges, and befriend them. I really debated with myself whether or not to put this out as a podcast. And normally, when I'm preparing for these episodes, I have a script in front of me. I have words that I'm referring to and ideas that I have formed in advance or thought about or researched. But I also think our experience of learning and attitude, our experience of learning in adulthood, sometimes we can't prepare. Sometimes we learn as a result of things that we haven't prepared for. Often, actually, that is the case. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Maybe a sobering episode, but something that I was reflecting on. And I would love to hear from you. If any of this resonates with you, or you've lost someone, or you've had a challenge that you've been through, and you have also done some reflection. I'm always interested in how our personal and professional lives intertwine, and how our experiences personally can inform the way that we approach certain challenges in our work, and vice versa. So if you're interested in chatting with me further, please get in touch with me at jane@theadultlearninghub.com. Thanks for listening to this episode today. And keep learning wherever you are in this life. Keep learning from your experience and keep listening to your experience. And thanks for tuning in.